The Galactic Empire had ruled for 12,000 years. They had conquered 700 worlds across the spiral arms of the galaxy. Their warships numbered in the millions, and their armies had crushed every species that dared to stand against them. The Velakari, a race of tall, silver-skinned beings with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like dying stars, sat at the top of this empire. They believed themselves to be the chosen rulers of all creation. When their scout ships first discovered Earth, they laughed. The planet was small and blue, covered mostly in water. The creatures living there had only recently discovered space travel. Their ships were slow and primitive. Their weapons were nothing compared to the plasma cannons and antimatter bombs of the Empire. High Commander Zorath, who led the Empire's expansion fleet, called humans barely evolved animals when he received the reports. The Empire sent a messenger to Earth with simple terms. Humans would surrender their planet. They would become slaves to the Their resources would be taken. Their strongest people would be sent to work in the mines of distant worlds. Those who refused would be destroyed. This was the way it had always been. Every species before had eventually bowed. The humans did something no species had ever done before. They said no. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the holographic image of High Commander Zorath. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind her stood representatives from every nation on Earth. They had put aside their differences when the alien ships appeared in their skies. Old enemies became allies. Countries that had been at war for decades now stood together. "We reject your terms," Ambassador Chen said. Her voice did not shake. Zora leaned forward in his command chair. His 4 arms gripped the armrests. No species had ever rejected the Empire's terms. Not once in 12,000 years. He thought perhaps the translation was wrong. "You do not understand," he said slowly, as if speaking to a child. "We have conquered 700 worlds. We have armies beyond counting. Your entire species could be wiped out in a single day." "We understand perfectly," Ambassador Chen replied, "and our answer is still no." The High Commander's silver skin darkened with anger. "Then you choose death. Your cities will burn. Your people will die screaming. We will turn your world to ash." Ambassador Chen smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something the other did not. "High Commander," she said, "let me tell you something about humans. We are not like the other species you have conquered. We do not surrender. We do not bow. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that killed millions. We have split atoms and walked on our moon. We have always found a way to survive." She paused and looked directly into the holographic eyes of the alien commander. "You think you know war. You don't. You have conquered species that were peaceful, species that had never known conflict. But we humans, we were born in war. We have perfected it. If you attack us, we will not simply defend ourselves. We will learn your technology. We will adapt, and then we will come for you." Zorath laughed. It was a harsh, clicking sound. Brave words from a primitive species. "You have 1 solar cycle to change your answer." The transmission ended. The nations of Earth gathered their leaders in a massive underground bunker. Scientists, generals, and diplomats filled the room. They had 24 hours to prepare for war against an empire that had never been defeated. General Marcus Kane stood before the assembly. He was a tall man with scars on his face from battles long past. He had fought in wars on 3 continents. Now he would lead the defense of his entire species. "They think we are weak," he said. "They think we will break. They are wrong." In secret laboratories around the world, scientists worked without sleep. They had been studying the alien technology ever since the first scout ships appeared. Now they rushed to adapt it, to improve it, to weaponize it. Human engineers had always been good at taking things apart and making them better. In the dark waters of the ocean, nuclear submarines waited silently. In hidden bunkers, missiles stood ready. Across the world, soldiers prepared for a fight they knew might be their last. But they did not prepare to surrender. They prepared to make the enemy pay for every inch of ground. When the Empire's fleet arrived in orbit around Earth, they expected easy victory. What they found was different. The first wave of landing craft descended toward Earth's major cities. They expected no resistance. They found walls of fire. Human weapons, crude as they were, filled the sky. The aliens' shields held, but the humans did not stop firing. For every alien soldier that touched the ground, 10 humans were waiting with weapons in their hands. The Velakari had never seen anything like it. On other worlds, the conquered species had hidden. They had cried. They had begged. But humans charged forward. They fought in the streets, in the buildings, in the sewers. They used every weapon they had. From advanced missiles to simple knives, a young Velakari soldier sent a message back to his commanders. His voice was shaking. "They will not stop," he said. "They just will not stop. We kill 10, and 20 more appear. They are not afraid to die. They are not afraid of anything." High Commander Zorath sat in his command ship and watched the battle reports with growing unease. His forces were winning, but the cost was higher than expected. Much higher. The humans fought like creatures possessed. They turned every building into a fortress. They attacked supply lines. They appeared from nowhere and vanished like ghosts. For the first time in his long career, Zorath felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. The invasion of Earth lasted 3 months. It was supposed to last 3 days. The Galactic Empire had thrown its finest troops against the humans. They had used weapons that could level mountains and ships that could block out the sun. They had expected the humans to break, to cry, to surrender. Instead, something else happened. The humans learned. In those 3 months, human scientists captured alien weapons and took them apart piece by piece. They studied the energy sources that powered the Empire's technology. They learned the weaknesses in the alien shields. Teams of engineers worked in underground bunkers, surrounded by the bodies of fallen soldiers, creating new weapons that mixed human creativity with alien technology. Dr. Elena Vasquez was one of these scientists. She had been a physicist before the invasion, studying theoretical energy patterns. Now she led a team that was building something the Empire had never seen before. They used plasma technology, she told General Kane during a secret meeting. It is powerful, but it has limits. Our nuclear technology, combined with their energy amplifiers, could create something much more dangerous. How dangerous? The general asked. Alina looked at him with tired eyes. She had not slept in days. Dangerous enough to make them afraid. While the scientists worked, the soldiers fought. The war spread across the planet. Cities burned and millions died. But for every human who fell, 2 more picked up weapons. Old people, young people, men and women from every country and background joined the fight. They attacked from forests and mountains. They sabotaged alien supply ships. They never, ever stopped. Captain Yuki Tanaka led a resistance cell in what used to be Tokyo. The city was in ruins, but beneath the broken buildings, thousands of fighters moved through tunnels that humans had dug by hand. They struck the aliens at night, killed as many as they could, and disappeared before morning. One evening, her team captured a high-ranking Velakari officer. They brought him to their underground base for questioning. The alien looked around at the dirty, exhausted humans with shock in his glowing eyes. "How are you still fighting?" he asked. His voice was filled with something close to wonder. "Your cities are gone. Your armies are destroyed. You should have surrendered months ago." Yuki knelt before him. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood, both red and silver. She had lost her family in the first attack. She had nothing left but the fight. "Do you know why you will never defeat us?" she asked quietly. "Because surrender is not in our nature. Our ancestors survived by fighting. We crossed frozen lands and burning deserts. We built civilizations and tore them down, only to build them again. We have killed each other for thousands of years, but we always survived." She stood and turned away. "You made a mistake when you attacked us. You united us. All our old fights, all our old hatreds, they mean nothing now. There is only one enemy, and every human on this planet is your enemy." The captured officer was eventually freed and sent back to his commanders. He brought with him a message and something else. Something that worried High Commander Zorath more than any weapon. Fear. The officer had seen something in the eyes of those humans. They were not beaten. They were not afraid. They were angry, and that anger was turning into something cold and sharp. Zorath called a meeting of his senior commanders. The holographic images of a dozen Velakari generals flickered in the command room of his flagship. "The resistance is spreading," one general reported. "We control the major population centers, but the humans attack from everywhere. They come from holes in the ground. They attack our supply ships in the ocean. They even have resistance cells within areas we thought were secure. Send more troops," Zorath ordered. "We have sent more troops," the general replied. His voice was strained. "We have sent 3 times the forces we used to conquer the Druk. We have sent 5 times what we used against the Nelvari Federation. The humans keep fighting." Another general spoke up. "There is something else, High Commander. Our intelligence suggests the humans are developing new weapons. We have detected unusual energy signatures from deep underground facilities." Zorath slammed his 4 fists against his command chair. "Find these facilities and destroy them." But finding them proved impossible. The humans had hidden their most important work deep beneath the earth, in places the Empire's sensors could not reach. They had spread their scientists across hundreds of locations, so that destroying one would not stop the others. The war entered its 4th month. The Empire had expected to add another conquered world to its territory. Instead, they had found something else entirely. On the anniversary of the first day of invasion, something changed. Across the planet, human forces suddenly pulled back. They retreated from their positions. They disappeared into their tunnels and forests. The Velakari commanders were confused. Had the humans finally given up? Then the message came. Every communication device on every alien ship received it simultaneously. A human face appeared on millions of screens. It was Ambassador Chen, the same woman who had rejected the Empire's terms 4 months earlier. She looked older now, thinner, with new lines on her face, but her eyes burned with something fierce. "High Commander Zorath," she said, "leaders of the Galactic Empire, we offered you peace, and you chose war. We asked to be left alone, and you brought death to our world. You thought we were weak. You were wrong." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "You have one chance. Leave our planet now. Take your ships and your soldiers and go. If you do not, we will show you what humans truly are when they have nothing left to lose." Zorath laughed when he heard the message. He ordered his generals to ignore it. The humans were clearly desperate, making empty threats to buy time. 12 hours later, the first human warship rose from the ocean. It was beautiful and terrible. This ship that humans had built in secret while dying by the millions. It was made of alien technology and human anger, powered by energy sources that even Velakari scientists did not understand. Behind it, more ships rose from hidden bases across the world. The humans had been building an army in the dark, and now they were coming. The Battle of Earth's orbit lasted 17 hours. It changed everything. High Commander Zorath watched from his flagship as the human ships rose from their hiding places. There were 47 of them, small compared to the Empire's massive warships. His fleet numbered over 200 vessels. The math was simple. The humans would be destroyed. He gave the order to attack. The first Velakari ships moved forward, their plasma cannons charging with deadly energy. They had used these weapons to shatter whole fleets. They had reduced cities to glass. Nothing could survive their fire. The human ships did not run. They flew directly at the enemy. When the first plasma blasts hit the human vessels, something unexpected happened. Instead of exploding, the human ships absorbed the energy. Their hulls glowed bright red, then white, but they did not break. That humans had learned from the alien technology. They had improved it. Their shields were not just copies of Velakari designs. They were something new. Increased power. Zorath shouted, "Destroy them." More plasma fire poured toward the human ships, and then the humans fired back. The weapons they had built were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They combined nuclear energy with alien power sources in ways that Velakari scientists would later study for decades. The first blast from a human ship cut through a Velakari warship like light through darkness. The vessel exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from Earth's surface. Then, another ship exploded, then another. On Earth, billions of people looked up at the night sky and watched lights flash like a second set of stars. They watched and prayed and hoped. Captain James Walker commanded the human flagship, a vessel named Defiance. He had been a submarine captain before the war, used to operating in silence and darkness. Now he led humanity's first space fleet into battle. "Target their command ships first," he ordered. His voice was calm, though his heart was racing. "Cut the head off the snake." The human ships moved with speed and skill that shocked the Velakari. They had expected clumsy, amateur movements. Instead, they found tactical brilliance. The humans struck in coordinated waves, targeting weak points, then pulling back before the enemy could respond. 3 hours into the battle, Zorath realized he was losing. His fleet had superior numbers, but the human weapons were devastating. For every human ship that fell, 10 Velakari vessels burned. He opened a communication channel. "What are you?" he demanded, his silver face twisted with rage and fear. "What have you become?" Captain Walker's face appeared on his screen. There was no joy in the human commander's eyes, only cold determination. "We are what you made us," Walker answered. "You came to our world seeking slaves. You killed our children. You've burned our cities. Did you think we would simply accept this? Did you think we would kneel? You cannot defeat the Empire." Zorath screamed, "Even if you win here, we have thousands more ships, millions more soldiers. We control the galaxy. Then we will take the galaxy from you." The battle continued. Human ships dove and twisted through the enemy formation, striking with deadly precision. They used tactics that the Velakari had never encountered, strategies born from thousands of years of human warfare. They attacked from unexpected angles. They sacrificed small ships to protect larger ones. They fought with no regard for their own survival. One human pilot, Lieutenant Maria Santos, flew her damaged ship directly into the engines of a Velakari carrier. The explosion destroyed both vessels but crippled 3 more enemy ships that were too close. Her last words were broadcast to both fleets: "For Earth, for humanity, forever." As the hours passed, the tide of battle shifted completely. The Velakari fleet, which had seemed so mighty, was breaking apart. Ships tried to flee, only to be hunted down by human vessels. The darkness of space filled with burning wreckage and floating bodies. Zorath watched, his empire's greatest fleet fall to pieces around him. He had conquered worlds. He had crushed rebellions. He had never lost a battle in his 200-year career. Now he was watching his ships die. "Retreat," he finally ordered, his voice breaking. "All ships, retreat to the jump point." But the humans did not let them go easily. They pursued the fleeing vessels, destroying transports and supply ships. They captured crippled warships and took their crews prisoner. They showed no mercy because none had been shown to them when the battle ended. Only 34 Velakari ships remained from a fleet of over 200. They limped away from Earth carrying the survivors of the greatest defeat in the Empire's history. On Earth, people poured into the ruined streets. They screamed and cried and hugged each other. For 4 months they had fought and died. They had watched their world burn. Now, for the first time, they allowed themselves to hope. But the war was not over. The leaders of Earth knew this. General Kane met with the surviving commanders in the bunker where they had planned the defense of their world. The room was smaller now. Too many seats were empty. Too many friends were gone. "The Empire will return," he said. "They will send larger fleets. More soldiers. This was just the beginning. Ambassador Chen nodded. Her face was gray with exhaustion, but her eyes were still sharp. Then we must make sure they never threaten another world again, she said. We did not ask for this war, but we will finish it. Captain Walker, just returned from orbit, stood at the back of the room. His uniform was stained with smoke and tears. The ships we captured contained star maps, he reported. We know where the Empire's worlds are. We know their supply routes. We know their weaknesses. There was silence in the room. Everyone understood what this meant. We spent months defending, General Kane finally said. Now it is time to attack. The human fleet began to grow. More ships were built faster and stronger than before. Captured Velakari technology was studied and improved. Scientists worked alongside soldiers. Engineers alongside pilots. 6 months after the Battle of Earth's orbit, the human fleet was ready. They were going to take the war to the stars. The galaxy had never seen anything like the human advance. The Velakari Empire stretched across hundreds of star systems, connected by trade routes and military outposts that had existed for thousands of years. They believed this network was unbreakable. They believed their borders were safe. They were wrong. The first human strike targeted Valeris Minor, a military supply station at the edge of Empire space. The station held weapons, food, and fuel for the fleets that protected the inner worlds. It was defended by 50 warships and thousands of soldiers. The human fleet arrived in the dead of night. They used captured alien technology to mask their approach, slipping through space like ghosts. By the time the Velakari detected them, it was too late. Admiral Sarah Chen, the former ambassador who now commanded the entire human fleet, gave the order herself, leave nothing standing. The battle lasted for hours. When it ended, Valeris Minor was gone. Its stations were shattered wreckage. Its defending fleet was destroyed, and the message it sent echoed through every world in the Empire. The humans were coming. Panic spread faster than any fleet could travel. For 12,000 years, the Velakar had been the conquerors. They had never been the conquered. They did not know how to be afraid. Now they learned. Stories spread from system to system. The humans were demons. They could not be stopped. They appeared from nowhere and left only destruction behind. Some said they were machines, built for war. Others said they were monsters, feeding on fear. The truth was both simpler and more terrifying. They were just humans. They had been peaceful once, interested in art and science and the questions of the universe. But the Empire had attacked them. The Empire had burned their cities and killed their families. Now they had become something different. They had become what war required them to be. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her flagship, the New Dawn. She looked at the stars through the viewport and remembered Earth as it had been before the invasion. Green fields and blue oceans. Children playing in parks. Lovers walking hand in hand through city streets. All of that was gone now, burned away by alien weapons. But humanity had survived, and they would make certain this never happened again. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, "We have intercepted communications from the Velakari homeworld. They are sending their grand fleet to stop us." Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in it. How many ships? Over 500 warships. It is the largest fleet they have ever assembled. 500 ships. The human fleet had only 120 vessels. The numbers were against them, as they had always been. Plot an intercept course, Chen ordered. It is time to end this. The two fleets met in a region of space called the Valdorn Corridor, a narrow passage between two massive nebulae. The Velakari had chosen this location carefully. Their superior numbers would matter more in the confined space. Grand Admiral Morith commanded the Velakari fleet. He was older than Zorth, with experience stretching back centuries. He had crushed more rebellions than he could count. He believed he could crush this one too. The humans are outnumbered, he told his officers. They are far from home, with no supply lines. They cannot win. The battle began at dawn, measured by Earth time. The human fleet arranged itself in a formation that the Velakari did not recognize. It was based on ancient human naval tactics, adapted for three-dimensional space combat. The ships formed a sphere, with the strongest vessels at the center and faster ships on the outer edges. The Velakari attacked in waves. As they always had, they expected the humans to break formation and scatter. Instead, the human fleet rotated, presenting fresh ships to each attack while protecting damaged ones. They fought as a single organism, every ship working with every other. Hours passed. Ships on both sides exploded. Debris filled the corridor like metal rain. Admiral Chen walked among her crew, offering encouragement, making tactical decisions, never showing fear. "Hold the line," she said again and again. "Make them pay for every meter." The battle reached its turning point when a young human pilot named David Okonkwo made a choice that changed everything. His ship was heavily damaged, engines failing, weapons running low. He saw a gap in the Velakari formation, a weakness in their defensive screen. Instead of retreating, he accelerated directly toward the enemy flagship. Okonkwo pulled back. His commander shouted through the radio, "You cannot survive that approach." "I know," David replied. His voice was calm. "Tell my daughter I love her." His ship dove through enemy fire, dodging and weaving with impossible skill. Velakori weapons tracked him but could not catch him. He flew like no one had ever flown before, pushing his ship beyond all limits when he was close enough. He activated his ship's remaining weapons and fired everything at once. The blast punched through the enemy flagship's shields and tore into its hull. The explosion that followed destroyed both vessels. Grand Admiral Morith died in fire and darkness, and with him died the Velakari's hope of victory. Without their commander, the enemy fleet fell into confusion. Human ships exploited every opening, every mistake. The battle became a rout. Velakari vessels tried to flee, but the humans hunted them down with terrible efficiency. When it was over, only 63 Velakari ships remained. They surrendered rather than face destruction. Admiral Chen accepted their surrender on one condition: they would carry a message back to their homeworld, a final warning. "Tell your emperor this," she said, standing on the bridge of a captured Velakari warship. "We did not want this war. We asked only to be left in peace. You refused. You killed our people. You burned our world. So now we are coming for yours." She leaned forward, and her eyes burned with 1,000 years of human determination. "Your worlds will burn unless you surrender unconditionally. There will be no negotiation. There will be no terms. You will release every slave you have ever taken. You will pay for every crime you have committed. And if you refuse, we will destroy every warship you have, and then we will destroy every city on every world that supports your empire." The surviving Velakari officers stared at her in horror. No species had ever spoken to the empire this way. No species had ever dared. "You have 1 month to decide," Chen finished. "After that, we are coming, and nothing in this galaxy will stop us." The message was sent to the Velakari homeworld. An empire that had stood for 12,000 years now faced an impossible choice, and on Earth, billions of people looked up at the stars and waited. The Velakari emperor had ruled for 3 centuries. His name was Zarthus the Eternal, and he had never known defeat. His palace on the homeworld of Valakris was made of crystal and gold, built on the bones of a dozen conquered civilizations. From his throne, he had watched empires rise and fall while his own grew ever stronger. Now, for the first time, he knew fear. The reports from the Valdorn corridor had shattered everything he believed. 500 warships destroyed, Grand Admiral Morith dead. The humans were no longer just a problem to be solved. They were a threat to everything he had built. His advisors gathered in the throne room, their silver faces pale with worry. Some urged immediate surrender. Others demanded more war. A few suggested finding allies among the other species the empire had conquered, but this idea was quickly dismissed. Those species hated the Velak. If the humans offered them freedom, they would join the invasion. "We could negotiate," one advisor suggested carefully. Perhaps the humans would accept something less than total surrender. The emperor rose from his throne. He walked to a great window that looked out over his capital city. Towers of glass and metal stretched toward purple clouds. Millions of Velakari lived their lives below, unaware that everything was about to change. "They will not negotiate," Zarthus said. His voice was tired. "We showed them no mercy. Why would they show us any?" The month passed slowly. The human fleet moved closer to the heart of the empire with each passing day. They stopped at every world they passed, not to destroy, but to free. Slave populations that had served the empire for generations were released. They were given weapons and ships and a choice. They could join the human advance, or they could rebuild their own worlds. Most chose to join. That human fleet grew. Species that had been conquered centuries ago now fought alongside Earth's children. They had different bodies, different languages, different histories, but they shared one thing in common: hatred for the empire that had enslaved them on a small moon orbiting a gas giant. Admiral Chen met with leaders of 5 formerly enslaved species. They gathered in a simple room, far from the crystal palaces of the Velakari. "Why do you fight for us?" asked a representative of the Dracolia species that had been enslaved for 2,000 years. He was small, with rough gray skin and large dark eyes. "You could simply destroy the empire and leave. You owe us nothing." Chen looked at him for a long moment. She thought about Earth still scarred from the invasion. She thought about all the people who had died so that she could stand here now. "Because what happened to us happened to you first," she finally answered. "The empire believed they had the right to take whatever they wanted, to enslave whoever they wished. We are here to prove them wrong, not just for us, but for everyone they have ever hurt." The Drakali representative bowed his head. When he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. "Then we will follow you to the end," he said. 2 days before the deadline, the emperor of the Velakari made his decision. He appeared on every screen across the empire, his image broadcast to billions. He was dressed in his finest robes, but he looked old and broken. "My people," he began, "for 12,000 years, our empire has stood. We have conquered worlds and built wonders that lesser species could never imagine. We believed ourselves to be the rulers of the galaxy, chosen by fate to lead all others." He paused, and for a moment, his silver face showed something that looked like regret. "We were wrong." The announcement of surrender sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The empire that had seemed eternal was falling. Velakari military forces were ordered to stand down. Slave populations were to be freed immediately. All stolen resources would be returned to their original worlds. But the humans demanded one thing more. Admiral Chen traveled to the Velakari homeworld herself. She walked through the crystal halls of the imperial palace surrounded by armed guards from a dozen species. She stopped before the emperor's throne and looked up at the being who had ordered the attack on Earth. "Your fleet killed 800 million humans," she said. Her voice echoed through the silent chamber. "Our cities are ruins. Our children are orphans. You did this because you believed we were weak, because you believed you had the right." The emperor looked down at her. He had expected anger, even hatred. What he saw in her eyes was worse. Cold, calculated judgment. "What would you have of us?" he asked. "Justice," Chen replied. "Every officer who ordered attacks on civilian populations will be tried. Every soldier who committed war crimes will face judgment. And your empire, it ends today. Not in fire, as we threatened, but in change. Your worlds will govern themselves. Your military will be disbanded. You will never threaten another species again. And if we refuse," Chen smiled. It was a terrible smile. "Then our original promise stands. Your worlds will burn. Every one of them. We have the weapons. We have the will. Do not test us." The emperor closed his eyes. For 3 centuries he had ruled with absolute power. Now he had none. "We accept your terms," he whispered. The surrender ceremony took place on a space station between stars. Representatives from every species in the galaxy watched as the emperor of the Velakari signed documents that ended 12,000 years of tyranny. Human soldiers stood guard, their faces hard and proud. Ambassador Chen, who had refused the empire's demands at the very beginning, gave the final address. "This war began because a great power believed it could take whatever it wanted," she said. "It believed that strength gave it the right to enslave, to murder, to destroy. We humans proved them wrong, not because we are monsters, but because we refused to surrender what we believed in: freedom, dignity, the right of every species to chart their own course among the stars." She looked out at the gathered representatives, human and alien alike. "Today the Galactic Empire falls. Tomorrow, something new will rise from its ashes. A community of free worlds, built on respect and cooperation instead of fear and conquest. We will not forget what happened. We will not forget those we lost. But we will move forward, together, into a future where no child, human or otherwise, will ever know the terror of invasion." The galaxy watched in silence as humanity took its place among the stars. They had arrived as primitives, dismissed and ignored. They had survived as warriors, fighting against impossible odds. Now they emerged as leaders of a new galactic order. Some species still feared them. The humans had shown what they were capable of when pushed too far. But most felt something different: respect, gratitude, hope. On Earth, a rebuilding had begun. Cities that had been destroyed were rising again. Children played in new parks built over old battlefields. The scars of war would remain for generations. But so would the memory of victory. Admiral Chen returned home after the surrender. She walked through the ruins of her old neighborhood, where she had lived before the invasion. Nothing remained of her house. Nothing remained of her old life. But she looked up at the stars, and for the first time in years, she smiled a real smile. Humanity had survived. They had fought against the greatest power the galaxy had ever known, and they had won. Not through luck, not through mercy from their enemies, through their own strength, their own determination, their own refusal to ever surrender. The galaxy would never forget the lesson. When threatened, humans did not bow, they did not break. They burned their enemies' worlds instead.